Right off the bat, 2016 is looking to be a great year for consumers who are looking for premium built phones for a low cost. Now, BLU just released two new smartphones, the BLU Vivo XL, which we have already reviewed here on Android Authority, and the BLU Vivo 5, which is what I have right here. It is a more premium version and it costs a little more, but only for $199. You do get a lot here, so let's see if the BLU Vivo 5 is worth picking up. Design is the main story here and by far the most interesting aspect of the BLU Vivo 5 due to its metal build. Unlike its big brother, the BLU Vivo XL, the entire backing and sides of the phone are made of metal with these nice chamfered edges. And when feeling the phone and maneuvering it around in your hand, you'll feel that the metal used here is actually pretty high quality. Or at least it feels like it. It doesn't feel like it's going to get scratched as easily as other aluminum phones. And it's really a beautiful design, especially in this cheek gold color we have. Although you can pick it up in liquid silver as well. Like past BLU Vivo phones, these devices remain very thin. However, each year BLU plumps up their Vivo lineup a little, making this year's Vivo 5 6.9mm thin. It's still very thin and feels really great to hold, especially with it being very lightweight at 141 grams. It's ever so slightly rounded on the back, which helps with your grip, and overall when it comes to feel in the hand, the BLU Vivo 5 is one of the best on the market right now. Another big selling point BLU is trying to push is its big 5.5-inch Super AMOLED display. Colors are very saturated here, which I do think looks very nice, and with this being an AMOLED panel, you can expect the blacks to be as black as they can get. It's really great making these icons pop over the Vivo 5's default black background. Whites do appear pretty pink though, which is normal for a lot of AMOLED panels. And overall, these color profiles and features of the AMOLED screen would make for a fantastic viewing experience, but it's hampered by the Vivo 5's low resolution. We're only talking 720p here, and for a screen of this size, you will definitely notice some pixelation going on, even when holding the phone a good distance away. A 5.5-inch display at 720p comes to a pixel density of only 267 ppi. Text can be very fuzzy at times depending on its size, which will be annoying for some. And besides the low resolution though, the mix of this AMOLED screen with punched up colors can still make for great video watching, but when it comes to reading text, you may have some trouble. So with this being a $200 device, you're not going to expect the BLU Vivo 5 to bring the fastest performance, but given its specs, I had no problem doing almost anything. We have a MediaTek 6753 octa-core processor with a Mali T720 GPU and 3 GB of RAM, which is very nice to see in a phone at this price range. The phone runs very smoothly actually, with animation stuttering very rarely. Jumping in and out of apps is quite fast, although with very slight pauses when dealing with the recent app screen. I threw the phone through some benchmarks, with Geekbench giving it a pretty low score of 2,850 and Antutu giving it a score of 38,009. Even gaming holds up quite well, with very few drop frames here and there in more graphic intensive games. I was impressed with the Vivo 5's performance. It runs very well. Battery life is great as well, with its 3150 mAh non-removable battery. No, it's not removable like the XL, but with this decent sized battery, energy efficient processor, AMOLED display, and more importantly, low resolution screen, I could easily make the phone last a full day, all night while sleeping, and the next morning. Part of this is due to its intelligent standby power saving mode, which is on by default. My screen on time for the BLU Vivo 5 averaged about 6 hours of screen on time, which for me is excellent. Charging the phone is great thanks to the USB Type-C connector found on the bottom. Yes, you'll have to use different cables, but due to USB Type-C being reversible, there'll be a lot less fumbling around, especially in the dark as you charge up for the night. Besides this, charge times are pretty fast too, given the phone's battery capacity. No, you won't find any fingerprint scanner here or even NFC, but you will find a dual SIM card tray with 32 gigs of internal storage, which is very nice given the price. And if that's not enough, you have access to a microSD card slot that supports up to 64 gigs of storage. The speaker is found on the bottom right and actually sounds really good. It gets pretty loud, and even at max volume, there seems to be no problem with the sound being muffled or even distorted. It lacks a lot of bass, but the mids and highs seem to be mixed perfectly. Now, BLU has been known for really tinkering with their software on their phones for quite some time, which split a lot of users, but their last release seemed to be moving towards a better direction with a more slimmed down skin, the app drawer returning, and stock notification pulldowns and menus. However, with the BLU Vivo 5, it appears they have taken a step backward with a very heavily skinned version of Android Lollipop 5.1. Of course, some people will love this and some people will not. It really all depends on which phone you're coming from. But this redesign is quite different from a lot of phones on the market. First off, the app drawer is gone, so you'll have to resort to placing every single app on your home screen. Folder making is a must here. The notification menu is very simple and looks very clean, although there is no setting button here. In fact, there's no quick settings for anything. This is just a notification panel. If you want to access your quick settings, you'll have to pull up from the bottom. And if you get used to this, it can help keep things a little more organized, but I did find myself accidentally pulling this up from time to time, or sometimes struggling to make it appear. But like I said, everything runs very smoothly. Although there are no lock screen notifications, and sometimes the phone would refuse to chime when new notifications arrived, making me miss a lot of my notifications and even my texts. I'm not really sure why this would happen, but a simple restart usually fixes a problem. The recent app screen is more familiar without much skinning at all, which is nice. And while we're here, it's worth noting that the recent apps button is capacitive along with the home and back button. Although the back button and recent apps button have been flipped, which can take some time getting used to. Customizing your home screen is very simple, easily allowing widgets and transition effects to be chosen. In the theme app, you can change how your wallpaper and apps look with a lot of dark options, which really suits this AMOLED panel. So yeah, not all the reskin is bad, but here in the US, it will take lots of users some time to get used to the pull-down redesigns and lack of an app drawer. But of course, installing a third-party launcher can help solve some of these problems. The 13 megapixel camera on the BLU Vivo 5 is quite good for a phone of its price range. It doesn't have any optical image stabilization and is just your average budget phone camera spec sheet. LED flash along with a 5 megapixel wide-angle selfie camera. Pictures aren't bad at all in good lighting. The colors aren't too saturated and it can be prone to overexposing and can struggle with dynamic range in the shadows. HDR can help, but oftentimes won't actually create a more appealing photo. All of this being said, photos still look very good. Indoors, some grain will show, and of course, in a tough shot like this, the camera's slower shutter speed can cause moving objects to blur, but for the most part, images still come out very nice. In dark areas, the camera can be very hit or miss. It all has to do with how steady you can keep your hand, as the camera's shutter speed becomes very slow to compensate for loss of light. Most of the time, your shot will become blurry, but every once in a while, you'll capture something perfectly. Video quality is decent for what it is. It's what you would expect from a $200 smartphone camera, with lots of overexposing and constant exposure changes, and it can also be pretty shaky. The front-facing camera actually has a good amount of detail, but when you're not in direct sunlight, you will start to notice some grain. Overall, for a $200 phone to sport this camera, and for it to perform as well as it did in these crazy tests I put it through, there is nothing to complain about here. At the end of the day, this is a $200 smartphone that feels like a flagship that costs triple its price. The build quality on this thing is incredible, with its metal build, thin body, and lightweight. For a phone of this price, you'll be more than happy with this camera, its USB Type-C support, great battery life, and 5.5-inch AMOLED screen. Although you may get tired of the low resolution very quickly, as well as the overskinned software. Is it worth picking up? Well, for the build quality alone, I would say yes. It's great for the price. But even with this year just beginning, we're already starting to see phones in the price range offer a little more, like fingerprint scanners and higher resolution 5.5-inch screens. That being said, you won't find a more premium designed phone for $200. And for that price, you can't go wrong with the BLU Vivo 5. And that's the end of the review. Thanks for watching. Comment below and let me know what you think of the BLU Vivo 5. Do you guys think it's worth $199? Don't forget to check out our website, androidauthority.com, for the full in-depth review where we really go into detail. And as always, stay tuned and subscribe because we are your source for all things Android.